Taurus. No. Possible moves he can make is d4 and f4. Alright, so this is the opening as well that he can make. Alright, which is a very good one. Alright, he has his knight out and he has a pawn controlling the center as well. Alright, so whenever you have opponents that are trying to take control of the center, you can undermine their control by attacking the pieces that are in the center. Alright, for them. So in this case, I'm attacking his pawn. His knight is not really being attacked right now, but it's good development from him. Alright, very good move as well. He developed his next knight. Alright, I'm going to move my knight, although I'm going to leave a pawn hanging. I want to see if he notices that. Now the question is, does he notice? Now if he does take the pawn, I have no way of taking it back because there's no piece defending this center pawn, which is on e4. The question is, will he notice? Now this is a key thing in chess. You have to look and see what is the error your opponent is making. Only then will you understand what you're doing. Alright, so in this case, he didn't notice my pawn hanging. Alright, but what I'm going to do, let me see, what are my options? I can move my I can move my bishop to protect the pawn. Alright. Alright, that bishop is defending the center pawn right there. Alright, so overall he's doing a good job of controlling the center and protecting his pieces or defending his pieces. Alright, which is not bad. Very good. Alright, so I can possibly take the center pawn and it could be a possible fork. It would be a good fork or a good decision if this knight on c6 wasn't there. If that knight wasn't there, I could have taken this pawn right here and it could have been a fork between the two pieces, and you would have to decide whether or not you would take the pawn or just back away. Alright, but in that situation it would have been good, but since as the knight is there, I'm just gonna ignore that pawn for now, because if I take, then he can just simply take back and then it would just be an equal trade and I would be just giving up my center pawn for no reason. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go and pin his knight to the queen. No, this is another thing he needs to notice. Alright, so if he does move his knight, then the queen goes bye-bye. Alright, so this is the next thing that you need to take in consideration. When there's a pin, you have to look for what is being pinned. Alright, now the best move for him would be to move his h pawn. So pawn to h6 would be the best move for him, kicking the bishop or my bishop away. Now I could either take the horsey still, and he would have to take back with his pawn, or if he decides to move, which is a blunder, alright, and I'll just take his queen, which will make me be up by material like 9 points. Alright, so he did move it, so queen goes bye-bye. Alright, the next mistake he took with the king. Alright, now remember we have something called castling in chess. Now when you move your king or your rook, alright, before you castle, that gives up your castling rights. So in this case he gave up his castling rights when instead he could have just easily taken with the knight right here on c6. Alright, so that was another mistake right there. He didn't have to do that. Now this will affect him in the long run. Alright, now what can I do? Alright, how can I attack him? Alright, so he's attacking my center pawn on d4. That's not really troubling me, but I realized that I can go for a fork between the king and the rook. Alright, so if I go to knight g5, then I would go to f7. All right, that would be a fork. Fork between three different things. A fork between the king, the knight, not the knight, the bishop, and the rook. All right. So if he notices, he'll probably the best move for him to do to prevent the fork would be to move the king back in the center. That would prevent all of that from happening. But he's losing momentum because he's moving his king instead of developing more of his pieces. So, alright, so he didn't, I don't know if he noticed or not. I can still go for the fork, but the most I'd get is the bishop, which doesn't really make much of a difference. So what I'll do, I'll take the knight that's left hanging. So another thing you need to notice, you have to look and see if there's pieces of, or if any of your pieces are left hanging, because one careless mistake is all it takes for you to lose a game. Alright, so I took the knight that was left hanging, or that was undefended, and so I'm just going to, alright, I don't really need to pay attention to that because why would I when I can go for bigger fish? Alright, so what I'm gonna do, I'm going to try and see if I can go for a checkmate, a quick checkmate. Alright, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take his rook. Alright, now the best thing for him to do is to move his rook over to f8. Alright, that would chase away the queen and I would probably just get a pawn the most. Alright, let's see what he does. That's his best move right now. Rook to f8. Now if you're wondering how or where I'm calling, so remember labels are on each of the tiles on the board, and each of them has letters, and as you look on the vertical line we have numbers to go with them. Alright, so he moved his bishop. Alright, this move really did nothing because at the end of the day the queen is attacking the bishop as well as the rook. Alright, so I'm going for the bigger fish. The rook is 5 points, so obviously I'll take that one instead of just a measly little bishop. And I can also attack the king as well with tempo. Alright, not a checkmate because he has one safe square left to run to, which is e7. Alright, so go again, check, bring him out in the center. Alright, he can't take my queen because the queen is being protected by my knight. Alright, I can't move it to e6 because he can simply just take. That's if he notices that. Alright, so what can I do? Alright, so let me see. I can go there and check, or I can go to f8 and bring him out more in the center. Alright, see the best move, but I'm just playing along. Alright, let's go. Let's bring out some more powerful pieces. So I'll develop my. Let's have some fun. Alright, what am I going to do? So many options. Alright, let me just go and check. So check right here. It still has his one safe square, which is e7. Alright, so we're just playing cat and mouse at this point. Alright, his best move in this position is to push forward his pawn, alright, and possibly develop his his pieces a bit more, and then probably he'll have a chance in the show. But at this point, there is not much of a comeback. All right, he still has one bishop which is not using to full extent. All right, so what can I do? Checkmate, checkmate. All right, I really should have played queen to f8 just to bring him out in the center, but we'll get there eventually. All right, let's find another roundabout way. All right, bring up more of my pieces. So I bring up my bishop. All right, then what I'm gonna do, I'm going to. All right, now this is where the calculation comes into play. All right, so that move in of itself, that move did absolutely nothing. He could have taken the knight that was left hanging, or wasn't even left hanging. He could have taken the knight that was vulnerable. But that moving out of itself was of no use to him. It didn't help him, it didn't protect him, absolutely nothing. So remember, whenever you're playing, you have to move with a purpose in mind. Whether you're attacking or defending, you can't just move pieces just because you want to get them off from the starting square. Alright. Alright, let's play around some more. Alright, let's give him a pawn check. Alright, let's see what he does. Let's check him with the pawn. Alright, no. Alright, so his options were to either take the pawn or take with the knight. Either one would be fine for him. Taking with the knight would have been best for him. But now it's just a king hunt. So it's just mating one after this. After the only safe square that he can move to is b6, alright, which he does move to because there is no other square he can run to. And then it's just checkmating one at queen b5, alright. So in general, just a rule of thumb, as you may notice, most of his pieces on the left side of the board are developed. So that's another thing you need to know when you're playing chess. Alright. As I mentioned before, the best option that he had was to try and develop more of his pieces or to even utilize the ones that he had. And whenever you're playing, always try to take control of the center of the board. Alright, these 6 squares are what you need to focus on. Alright, in general rule, the 6 or 4 if you break it down. Alright, so as you can see, most of my pieces are here. My queen is in the middle, controlling a lot of squares. The knight is at the side, which is not the best position, but it's controlling a lot of squares, as you can see. Alright, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so there's a lot. There was one more as well. Alright, but in general rule, just try to control the center and attack as best as you can, and that is checkmate. Alright, let us see our review, alright, for what Horace has done. Alright, 86.7% accuracy. Alright, so I should have went easier on him, but he'll get better eventually. So the opening was okay. He didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Alright, but he missed his chance right here. As we mentioned before, he could have taken a pawn. I could have protected it, but I left it there deliberately. Alright, then I went for the pin. Alright, not the best move. Alright, could have taken a pawn right there. Alright, so you always have to remember what you are threatening, what are your possible moves. You have to remember everything. You have to look and see where exactly your knight is going to move or where it can move, if it is in danger, and if you make a move, if you're putting yourself into more danger. Alright, those things come over time. Alright, sometimes you panic or you get scared when you see moves, but Eventually you learn. So queen goes bye-bye. Okay. Then he takes back with the king. Alright, we already mentioned that most times you don't want to move your king. If at all, unless it's castling. Alright, in the early stages. Now the king is useful, but only when it's during the end game where you need him to move as well. Alright, he noticed the fork, but he loses alright his horsey, which is unfortunate. I don't know if he noticed the fork, but that was a good move on his part. Alright, to the queen, to the horsey. Alright, so in this case, what he could have done was that you could have moved his knight to a square where it could be easily defended. Alright, I didn't need to pay attention to that pawn right there because I'm attacking something else. I'm attacking the king, possibly. And as I mentioned before, you have to move with a purpose, with momentum. Alright, so this move didn't really do much for him. Alright, so going forward, hoping to see where he improves in his defensive plays. Alright, so this is the first tutorial, one of many. Alright, looking forward to many more going forward again this Saturday. Alright, and the rest of the game, that was basically just us doing a little ring around the rosy with the king. Alright,